Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Grand Theft Auto 5 video, we're going to be taking a look at some hidden details and secret features from some of the information and screenshots that Rockstar have been releasing over the past couple days and over the weekend. So we're seeing this pattern from Rockstar. They release the DLC information, and then they give us little bits and pieces of either new screenshots of things we saw in the trailer or completely new content, and we're seeing it again this time for the Doomsday Heist update. So we've received a couple new photos so far, and we're going to be taking a look at what's more than just on the surface of these vehicles. So let's start with this one right here. This is of the Stromburg. So the Stromburg is going to be the submarine car. At first, I thought this was going to be the Ardent Custom, but it turns out it's a completely separate vehicle, which is really cool. Now, one thing you might not have known, the name is actually an Easter egg, Stromburg, to a James Bond villain. So number one, as I'm sure you know, the car is a reference to the Lotus that appears in the James Bond film, The Spy That Loves Me. But did you know the antagonist, the bad guy, the main villain of that film, is called Stromburg? So that's where we get this name from. That's pretty cool. Again, Rockstar love their references to pop culture, so I thought that that was pretty awesome. Now, another thing that people have been asking me is, where is this photo taking place? And we could even go back to the trailer where we see three of the Strombergs actually converging on a submarine. And the only real thing we can see underwater is like wreckage of sorts. Typically, it'd be pretty easy to find where these locations are, but in this instance, because there isn't really any landmarks, that's kind of difficult. The one thing I can show you guys is this map right here. These are all like the wreckages or ships that you'll find off the shore of the map. So I know this doesn't really get us to one location exactly, but it's in one of those locations. So you know that some sort of mission with the Stromberg is going to be occurring right there. Sorry, I couldn't get it a little bit more precise, but there's a lot of airplane wreckage in the water and a lot of things underneath the surface. Now, another thing about the Stromberg that I was actually wondering is, how are the windows going to work? Because this vehicle can actually transform. It's not two separate cars. The Stromberg will be able to be used on land, and it'll transform when it goes in the water. But my question is, how does that transformation work? Is it going to be kind of seamless or instantaneous like the technical Aqua, or are you going to have to like push a button right or left on the D-pad in order to transform it into a certain mode? And will that take a couple of seconds? Because I was thinking, what happens if the windows get shot or the windscreen gets knocked out? If you were to drive in the water and go deep, it would start crushing your car like a submarine. It couldn't handle the pressure. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Are the windows and the windshield of the Stromberg going to be bulletproof by default? Or when you transform it into the underwater mode, is it like somehow going to get fresh windows? Because as we can see in the photo, it has windows. They aren't like almost shielded off. So that's going to be a very interesting thing that we'll see will happen. Again, what happens if you're shot underwater or the window gets damaged, if that's even a thing underwater. Again, just some little things I've noticed looking at this photo. Now let's move on to the Akula. So what Rockstar said with the Akula is pretty interesting. They said it comes with a passenger-equipped 50 cal turret, a rear-seated thermal and night vision camera, and a stealth mode to operate off the grid. So that's a lot of things that this helicopter has, a lot of really cool features. And I was kind of thinking to myself, doesn't that sound really overpowered? Because Rockstar just added the Hunter in the game, and in every way, shape, and form, this sounds better than the Hunter in terms of its abilities, weaponry, etc. But I got to thinking, what if Rockstar requires there to be a full aircraft in order to utilize all those features? So they confirmed that the 50 cal turret has to be operated by a passenger, but what about that rear seat thermal and night vision camera? Does that have to be manned by a passenger too? In order to have stealth mode, do you have to have 4 people inside? Does the 4th person have to be the one that operates the stealth mode? That's something I thought was pretty cool. Another theory I've seen is, you see how this picture has the missiles on the outside? Well, actually on the trailer, it doesn't have those missiles. So there's 2 theories here. Number 1, this is a researched upgrade. Or number 2, when you're in stealth mode, you might not have access to the weapons of the vehicle. It's almost like passive mode, but stealth mode, where it takes away your ability to use the weapon. So that's another theory that I think could potentially be the case. And as far as the 50 cal turrets on the front, A lot of people have been speculating, well, are those going to be explosive rounds like what we see in the Hydra and the laser? And I don't think so. Every other 50 cal weapon that we have in the game has never been explosive, so I would assume that this one is going to follow the same path as well. And as you'll see in a little bit with the next photo we're going to be taking a look at, it also looks like the Akula has the ability to have liveries on there. So the one we saw in the trailer had a different livery. This one's kind of like this desert snakeskin one, which actually looks kind of awesome. So I wonder if we'll be upgrading this in our hangar. That seems to be the perfect opportunity since Rockstar just added them in Smuggler's Run. So that was the second photo they teased the other day. The third one, which I thought was pretty interesting, is for the Kanjali, which I can almost guarantee you will be the most misspelled or most mispronounced name of any Grand Theft Auto Online vehicle. But a couple things I noticed about this. So number one is the kind of honeycomb pattern on the tank itself. That is very futuristic. Now, what this reminded me of was a video game I used to play, Crysis. And in that game, they actually have like these exosuits that allow you to turn invisible. And those exosuits sort of have the same honeycomb pattern. So maybe, and this is extremely far-fetched, what if this very futuristic tank has some sort of active camo feature? Now, that would be nuts and crazy in every way, and I think it would be very overpowered. But honestly, at this rate, it wouldn't shock me if Rockstar does any of that. So who knows, there might be active camo on there. If we take a look at the top of the tank, you see those two things sticking out with those almost metal tubes hanging out of the side. Those look to be APS systems, which are actually designed to deflect or kind of get rid of incoming missiles or shells or artillery fire. So I wonder if this is going to have some sort of flare system like we've seen with the aircrafts in Smuggler's Run. It's almost like Rockstar's trying to make this the most overpowered tank of all time. Honestly, would not shock me if this tank is, number one, incredibly expensive, but also, number two, just a killing lethal machine. And the last thing, I pointed this out in my video earlier, this takes place at Fort Zancudo, so maybe this is a part of a mission, maybe this is at Fort Zancudo. I can't really tell at the moment. But either way, this is a pretty awesome tank. Moving on to the next photo, we've got this one right here. Now, two things we need to touch on. Number one, what is going on with these players? So first of all, they're wearing night vision goggles, yet they have their flashlights on. That is so counterproductive. So I don't know if Rockstar didn't really think this through or what, but night vision goggles and flashlights would not work so well. So not exactly sure how well these guys can see in this area. And number two, Rockstar kind of had to correct themselves a little bit. They said crews can now play and complete heist missions with 2 to 4 players. And this was one of the worst worded tweets of all time because it assumed, if you read that all the heist missions, the ones back from 2015, would now be available with 2 players, which obviously isn't the case. Those heists were designed with 4 players in mind. They put out a correction tweet later that confirmed that the 2 to 4 players is only for the Doomsday Heist missions. So hopefully that clears that up. It was kind of confusing at first. In fact, I was a little confused at first. So I'm glad Rockstar put out that clarification tweet. Now, before we end the video today, I wanted to include these last minute shots. These are the screenshots that Rockstar have actually revealed today. And the first image that was pretty interesting, it shows Avon Hertz. And in the background, the biggest thing is drones. Now, I wanted to show you guys some photos of what some drone mods look like. And these are actually pretty cool. So I want to say these are going to be unmanned drones. Like we're going to be controlling them from either some sort of controller or some sort of remote facility or tower or something like that. And I also don't think they'll be weaponized, even though some of the ones you see in these photos are weaponized. And another thing, I thought Rockstar might have gone a little bit more high-tech here. Maybe went with a drone that looked something like this. But I still think this is going to be pretty cool. I guarantee you that that's a setup mission for one of the heists that we're going to be doing where we have to gather some intel or some data or some information using sort of these surveillance drones. So that's going to be really, really exciting. And another screenshot that Rockstar showed off is of the Volatile Bomber. And their description for this one was pretty interesting too. It flies high above Los Santos. And the biggest thing about this plane is literally the size. So what we're going to do here is we're going to zoom in on the cockpit, compare that to the size of the other parts of the plane. This is absolutely massive. So I think this might be one of the bigger or biggest planes we've seen in the game. And it also raises the question, if they add sort of this vehicle into the game, big kind of planes and jets, why couldn't they add the cargo plane? We've seen the cargo plane used in other types of missions and other types of jobs, like the gun running work dispute one, where we literally launch oppressors out of the back of a cargo plane. So who's to say Rockstar couldn't add something like this? But this is by far the biggest thing in this plane, is literally the size. This thing is absolutely massive. Now, my biggest fear for this plane is that it is so slow and cumbersome that it just becomes worthless. That, in my opinion, is the biggest downfall of a plane like the Bombushka, is that it's so slow. No matter how good it is, the fact that it can't get out of the way of rockets or sniper fire is one of the reasons why I don't use it, and one of the reasons why I rarely ever see it in free mode sessions. It's too slow to avoid all the other weaponry and firepower that we have in online. And hopefully that doesn't become of the new Volatile Bomber. And speaking of that, what's with the name of this thing? Really, Rockstar? We have the Volito, we have the Volatus. Volatile is the best thing you could come up with? Come on, man. We got to get some better names for these jets and these aircrafts and whatnot. They're all sounding so similar. But regardless, I think this is going to be a really cool jet, and I can't wait to get my hands on this vehicle when it does arrive on Tuesday for the Doomsday Heist DLC. But anyways, that right there is all the information that I'm going to be going over for you guys in this video today regarding some of the images, screenshots, details, and more that Rockstar have revealed for the Doomsday Heist update that's going to be coming out in just a few short days. Let me know if you're excited for this update in the comments section down below. I'd love to hear from you guys down there. If you did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would, of course, be awesome. And also, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new or you like daily GTA 5 videos like this. With all the way, guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.